Perfect. Cool. Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us, Claire. Claire is the director of Recro Business Services based in Cape Town. Is that correct, Claire?
Yeah.
Yep. And a fellow EOA member. So that's how Claire and I have come in contact. So yeah, she's going to be chatting to us about personal finance tips, and really excited for your session, Claire. So from the team, pretty much got the whole team joining us. Yeah, I think it's a nice spread of different ages as well, but also a lot of young people on the team. I think I'm the oldest on the team, so yeah, essentially it'll be good for everyone to get some insights into personal finance tips. So awesome, Claire. Looking forward to it. Over to you.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, a little bit about me. I've built my own business from scratch. 25 years experience. I started straight out of school. So I'll refer to some of my things I did when I was young as well, when I started managing my money. And I've been running a business for 12 years in July, and I have 12 staff that work for me, all younger than me as well. Some of them 20 years younger than me, which makes me feel old sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to cover today, there's 4 areas, but I'm mainly going to concentrate on the first one, because I think for most people, managing your money better is an area, especially when you're younger and you're starting to figure out things in life, is quite an area where a lot of people that I know battle with. And then I'm going to just touch on investments and savings. I know you have someone going to speak a little bit more about that and this protection. I'll just very briefly be touching on that, and the tax management. Okay, so managing your money better. So what you've got to do here in terms of managing your money better is you need to actually start with your goal. What do you want out of life? Where are you going? Do you have a money goal? Perhaps when borders are open again, to welcome our South Africans, would you like to travel? Would you like to go on an overseas trip? Would you like to finance your own car? Would you like to, I think most people one day want to buy a house, but that's maybe a bit of a big goal when you're in your 20s or early 20s. What is your goal? You need something, you need your why about why you're doing this. And that's for a lot of things in life. It's good to have something to anchor yourself with, because some of the steps here are hard. They take discipline, and you need to be able to remind yourself, preferably with a picture or image you can put on your wall, of why you're doing this. The second thing you need to do is you need to be honest with where you're at. Okay, now a lot of people run up accounts, get into debt, and they're like, I actually am totally out of control and I don't know what to do. But I know people, and even work with some clients, they're like ostriches and they like to put their head in the sand, and they don't want to actually be honest with where they're at. Only when you're honest with where you're at and you sit down and say, this is all the debt I have, this is all the expenses, etc., can you actually look at a plan for tackling it? Okay, it doesn't help not being honest with yourself and just carrying on in the endless cycle of just spending and getting into more debt. The third thing, once you've done that, is you need to critically look at your debt and tackle your debt first. Stop wasting money on interest, and we'll go into that a bit more, and start decreasing your debt, because that it's like it ties you down, and it stops you from being free. And then after that, when you your debt's under control in that, then you can invest your money and you can let your money make more money for you. Okay. So I'm going to start off talking about debt, credit cards, and accounts. So in the interest rates, credit cards are lovely and they're convenient. But if you start putting things onto credit cards to pay off over 6 months or 24 months, or all those little traps that they're like putting up for you, you can end up paying 3, 4, 5 times the price of the item that you're buying. So at the end of the day, if you're going to be putting something in credit card, you need to ask yourself, is this worth 4 or 5 times what I'm paying for it? Huge danger. So credit cards are like last minute resources. So one of the first things you need to tackle if you've got debt is to reduce things on your credit card. The second would be your accounts, like clothing accounts and groceries. Please don't buy groceries on account. And if you have been doing this, stop. You can't be funding short-term consumable items with finance. It's not sustainable. Okay, I mean, I've known people that run up Woolworths accounts or, Clicks accounts with like 30, 40,000 Rand. And that is really, you're out of control then. You can't be buying things that you're going to throw away next week in terms of food with money that you're still paying for your food today in 3 months' time. So those are the first things you need to tackle in terms of debt cutting down. Generally, good debt is like when you buy a property and you've got a mortgage bond, and hopefully you can, those rates are okay. And usually cars, when you're financing those, they're at a little bit more reasonable rates. But have a look at your accounts, because they won't tell you it's 30% a year. They'll say it's like 2.5% a month. And you think, oh, it's not too bad. But then add it up over the year, it's a lot of money. And just paying interest unnecessarily is just increasing the cost of the item. Just so, if I just give an example. So if you buy a house over a 20-year bond, you end up paying almost double for that house. The same with a car. When you're buying it over 5 years with usual interest rates, you kind of usually often pay 1.5 times for your car if you buy it over 5 years. So we can't tackle those big debts first. We want to tackle some people go and tackle the smallest debts first, but the best way to do this is look at the ones with the highest interest rates, because there you're going to be saving more when you clear those off. Your credit cards should only be used for emergencies, but you need to be honest with yourself now and see how often do emergencies happen. So if emergencies are happening on a regular basis, then you probably should be putting maybe a savings fund together for emergencies and not kind of increasing that debt every month. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing, you maybe be a little bit shocked by this one too, is you're going to write everything down that you spend. Okay. So I used to do this from when I first started working. My salary when I first started working was a large 950 Rand. So I started straight out of school quite a few years ago. And I had to be careful with what I spent. Okay. But being an accountant, this is a little bit more, probably more natural for me than for you guys. So I appreciate that. I also make my staff do this so they know how much our clients have to keep track of when they are keeping track of all the expenses for us every month. But what it's going to do for you, and hopefully you're going to keep looking at that goal or that reward that you want to give yourself and save for at some point, you're going to know from what you're spending, how much you're spending on everything. And you know what makes easy, really easy these days? There's all these lovely apps. There's Toshi Finance, Toggle, and there's quite a few that are actually free that every time you spend something, you can just quickly put it in your phone. And at the end of the month, it kind of puts it into the different categories and sections, and you can see how much you're spending on everything. You can also then track what's going through your bank card, because you've all got debit orders and stuff going off, and see what you're spending there. The other thing is beware of cash, because cash just like, you can't track it. You just spend it on this, spend it on that, and unless you like super vigilant, it kind of disappears. So just be careful with that. So you're going to keep a track of everything that you're writing down. You might get a bit shocked about how much you're spending, say, on, eating out or takeaways, or, for some little bit of a different circumstance at the moment with, but I know with some young people and stuff, you know, you're going out, how much money you're spending on alcohol, it all adds up. Okay, so when you've done that, you know what you're spending on. Then what you're going to do is you're going to create a budget. Okay, so you're going to put your budget together and you're going to say, now this is not going to say you're not going to spend any money going out and doing entertainment until you pay off your debt, because that's not sustainable. Okay, it's not going to last. It's like one of those New Year's resolutions. Yeah, I'm going to go to the gym every day and I'm not going to have a break. It's not going to last. So you've got to actually allow yourself for some fun spending as well as some disciplined spending. And then you put a budget together for all of those. But the trick to the budget is, first of all, you're going to start with maybe looking at, okay, cool. I go out and I spend, and I have 3-4 drinks. Maybe I'm going to go out and limit myself now to just 2 drinks every time I go out. Then you're saving half the money of that budget, or let's say 3. And then the next month you say, right, I'm going to limit myself now to 2 drinks I'll go out. Or I'm going to go out half the time. So every month what you do with your budget is you start making it, say you start off with a 500, then you decrease to 400, then 300. Over 3 months, you will find you suddenly save 500 or 600 Rand extra, and you're going to put that straight into your credit card debt, all the debt that you are paying off at that moment. You can also take your budget and look at how much money you've got left for the month, and then divide that by the number of days, and then limit that to you got that much to spend per day. And then see if you can challenge yourself to spend less than that. And then at the end of the month, just before payday, you might have a bonus that you can take that money and put it straight into your debt. Nice little game to play with yourself and nice little challenges. I don't know about you, but I like challenges, and we all like to play games and challenges. And then slowly, you will eventually decrease your debt to a sustainable amount, hopefully pay off all those credit cards, close those accounts, and then move on to the next thing. So part of this as well is bills. Okay, so yeah, like this guy in the picture, we do get shocked at all these bills. So a little bit different as well now. So I'm sure we have been, I'm not sure about you guys, but people have been a little bit more aware of what they're spending, what's coming off the bank account. Jim's a good example, but it's been a bit of a funny one in the last year. You know how many people sign up for gym contracts, they've got this gym contract going off and they don't go. So those kind of things, if you're not going to go and you're not going to use it, then cancel it. That extra 300, 400, 500 Rand can be going straight into paying your debt. And once you finish your debt, straight into your savings towards your goal. Okay. The other things that tend to keep up, I know, are like extra phone apps that you got on your phone or subscriptions. So have a look at your Apple or your, I'm not quite sure how the Play Store works, accounts and what's coming off every month. Have a look at everything that's coming off your bank statement and start questioning, what is this for? And do I really need it? And yeah, is it going to be, is it good for me to still have this? Okay. Insurance. So things like insurance, I wouldn't cut out, because that, I'm going to chat about a little later, is that's also a bit of a saving for you. But a lot of these things like insurance, especially now, are you getting the best deal? You know, maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes of your time, making a phone call to insurance companies, to another insurance company, challenging your current insurance company. And because you guys are also young, your risk profiles are quite low risk. So, you know, you can shop around and save a couple $100 there. Every extra little few $100 Rand is going to go into your debt and going to save you money. Don't spend that money, put it straight into your debt. Medical aid. Being young, I'm hoping most of you should be quite healthy, assuming hopefully there's no other anything else going on other than chronic medication and stuff. But medical aids, often savings accounts are actually unnecessary. Okay, you can maybe have a savings envelope for that. And being young, most young people are quite healthy. I would recommend a hospital plan or even medical insurance, which is cheaper, but having a hospital, having a savings plan on your medical aid is not really necessary, because often the extra amount you're paying on them is not actually going into your savings, and the extra benefits that you get from that, it doesn't really justify the increase that you're paying. So more money that could be going into your debt. And as you are looking at your bank statements, you develop an awareness for spending every month. I mean, little things as well, like, I don't know how relevant it is to you guys, but DSTV, I mean, that's like, people pay R1,000 a month for that. I mean, Netflix is like R100 a month or something, if you need to have TV in your life. Most people, it's just, I mean, personally, I cannot justify. I mean, I'm not a TV person, but just paying that much money on that is just ridiculous. But it's also, you know, sometimes if that is something, maybe what it is you say, okay, cool, I'm going to go without that for 6 months, and I'm just going to take that money and I'm going to put it into paying my debt. Okay. So as you do this more and more, you'll actually develop more of an awareness for spending a little bit more consciously and asking the right questions that you need to ask. Then one day you're going to get to a point where your debt is almost paid off. Now, there's lots of different things you can do for debt. My brother had a picture of a leaf, and it was broken into a whole lot of different spaces, and every time he had cleared off R1,000 or 500, I can't remember what the amount is here, he could color in a space. So he used that to kind of track his debt, paying off his debt. You can use a barometer, you can use those kind of things. Just, you know, it gives you a bit of encouragement every time you're looking at it. So now you've paid off your debt, all that money you're saving, you're going to be putting it into your savings funds. Okay, so you should probably have an emergency fund, a fund for your rewards and savings for goals. And then what you can do when you you want to start getting a bit more serious about is then you get on a financial advisor and you start looking at actual investments. So investments into, yeah, all sorts of things. I'm not going to go into investment advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but people usually start off with, some unit trusts, or, further along the line, property, or, Bitcoin or things like that. Okay. I can't give you advice on that. You must speak to a good financial advisor about those things. Yeah. So one thing, maybe just quickly, yeah, it is under this area as well. So when you're budgeting as well, you have your little budget envelopes. And it's good to just keep track of your saving, but if you can, put a bit of saving in those envelopes as well, even when you are paying off your debt. Okay, some other little tips here. So decluttering your physical space and selling unused items. Have a look around your physical space. Often, when you like cluttered and you've got too much stuff, you can't think clearly, and it kind of does have an effect in other areas of your life. But also, you might have a hold of clothes or books from varsity or whatever that they're just taking up unnecessary space, and they could be, you could get another few $100 to pay off your debt with those as well. And I don't think it's so relevant for us in South Africa, but I mean, I know like in America, the guys always say that people have got all this stuff in storage, and they're paying the stuff every month for storing items that they're not using. So I doubt that is the problem with you guys. Secondly, probably not a problem for you guys, but I know a lot of people that, and I even see it with, my staff, they go and buy lunch every day. And I'm like, it's such, going to buy lunch versus just making a little bit of extra supper and taking it the next day, or, making a lunch, bringing it to work. It's quite a bit of a saving when you add it up over the month. The same as, going home from work or going out and, quickly driving past the engine, buying the odd chocolate, buying the odd soft drink, energy drink, or coffees daily. All those things add up. if you buying a coffee daily, and we say this coffee is about 25 Rand, and you buy that, so you know I'm not going to it, but just to give an example, 21 days on average a month that you're working, that's 6,000 Rand in debt a year you could be saving just by cutting out buying coffee and rather just having coffee at home. It's quite a lot of money. So it's just to get into, it's not that you can't ever have treats, but just don't, keep the end goal in mind of what that why is, why you're doing this. And essentially, I listened to a podcast the other day, and the lady was saying, she went on a holiday, and her husband said, there's no budget for this holiday. You can do what you like. You can spend what you like. And she felt she was so stressed the whole time because she was like, are we overspending? Are we underspending? Instead of having a budget and saying, what, I've got 1,000 Rand or 2,000 Rand to spend on, some clothing that I like or whatever. And then she knew, okay, cool, that's some spending and it's in the budget. And so actually, essentially, when you've got a budget and you've got these kind of rules for yourself in place, it actually buys you freedom because you don't have that kind of angst about, am I going to make it till the end of the month? Oh, gosh, my rent or, those kind of things. So budgets actually give you freedom, spending wisely and putting these rules in place. And it's like anything in life. I don't know if any of you are like athletes and stuff. You need to train and you need to build yourself up, and it takes time to get there. But once you're at that peak fitness and performance, then it's quite easy to get going and to do things, and it's more fun to do things that you like. So yeah, then also now you've got a little bit more money, and it's also a relatively short-term sacrifice. Give yourself 6 months to really go at this, and then you can maybe just step back a little bit with some things, depending on where you're at. I don't know, you're going to have to decide for yourself how long your financial freedom goal is. Okay. Then now money is also there to spend, obviously. So when you're spending stuff, so a lot of people think Take-A-Lot is amazing. Like I love Take-A-Lot, convenient and all of that. And sometimes it is quite a lot cheaper than other places, but sometimes it's not. So don't always assume that, your online shopping is going to be cheaper. I heard the other day, one of my staff was telling me on the Checkers 60 minutes delivery service that, the Checkers had added just another 300 Rand to this lady's bill, because in case stuff was out of stock, then they'd have to exchange the item. So just be really careful on these things and, check these things, because sometimes there's these little hidden costs. And if you're buying, say, 2,000 Rand of groceries or 1,500 Rand of groceries, if they add another 150, you're like, sure, that's quite a lot. Maybe you think it's a lot for what you're buying, but maybe you just like, well, that's what it costs. Question it. Okay, do quotes. There's a website called Price Check that usually takes prices from all different appliances and different things, that shows you where you can get things and where you can get them cheaper. Loot often is cheaper than Take-A-Lot for books and all that kind of stuff. So a little bit of time, extra time doing your homework, it will save you even more. Okay. If once you've paid your credit card, decide you're going to start using your credit card again, because it is quite convenient, put a rule in place. Either reduce your limits, phone your bank and say, no, I want the limits reduced, because they tend to, especially they do it with accounts as well, they just increase your limits all the time. So you'll spend and spend and spend more. You can get that reduced, but pay it in full every single month. Okay, so what that'll also do for you, it will give you a really good credit record. Because when you want to go and maybe one day, so when you get yourself an account, when you want to buy a house, when you want to get a car, all those kind of things, if you don't have already, they are going to want to check your credit record. So if you've built up this credit record by paying your credit card in full every month, it's going to look good for you. And that determines what interest rate they're going to offer you on those big ticket items. Okay. Don't do store accounts, honestly. They are just too much of a trap. Unless you are thoroughly diligent, you open it to get an opening offer, and then you close it as soon as it's paid off. And well, as soon as you've utilized that. Okay. And then also, there's no harm in asking for discounts. If you don't ask, you don't get. Well, what's the worst they could say? It's just no. Okay. Quickly on the risk protection, I've spoken about medical aid. You should have a medical aid. You know, even my husband didn't have medical aid until beginning of last year, and I actually came to the realization, you know, if anything happened to him and he had to go into hospital and he had to go into ICU, ICU is like R1 million a week. I don't think I could live with myself if my husband wasn't in a proper care hospital, and I would pay, but that would actually like, you know, a couple of weeks in ICU could bankrupt you. So some things like that they're just protection, and the same as like insurance, especially car insurance and third-party insurance. Maybe you can't afford full insurance for your car now, but at least third-party insurance is good. And yes, Jess, gap cover is quite good, and usually you can get quite reasonable gap cover just to cover the gap between your medical aid and what some of these doctors charge. But also with these doctors, tell them you don't have gap cover, so they can't charge you the gap cover rates, because often the surgeons and stuff will say, do you have gap cover? And then they just up their rates. And you say, no, I don't. Give me the non-gap cover rates. And, you know, they often do. Okay. When you are in I wouldn't necessarily advise it quite yet, but you might want to start looking at income protection at some point when your debt is more stabilized, in case you know, something, disability or something you get that you can't do your job. It is a good thing to have, and probably not for most of you at the moment, but when you actually start having a family, you want to look at life cover. You want your children to be protected. But I'm sure you're going to get a financial advisor that's going to go into all that kind of detail a lot more for you. Just a few things for future things to think about when your basic finances are in order. Okay, then tax, favorite subject. The biggest advice I can give you about tax is to avoid the penalties. And how you do that is you keep up to date and you submit your tax returns when you need to submit them, and you submit the supporting documentation when you need to submit it. Penalties, probably more so than interest to the bank, is a very unnecessary expense. Okay. And when you think of the effort, because I know it's an effort for most of people to do their tax return and to put their tax stuff together and all that kind of stuff, it's not fun. But you also need to think of the government stealing your money and using it for the wrong things. So you don't want to be giving them any more than you should be giving them. Okay, and that might hopefully motivate you to get it on time and get it done. And then it's lifted off your shoulders. So I know quite a few of you are working from home, and you know, you might be contractors and that. So there are home office claims that you can certainly put into place in the last year. There's a couple of rules around that. You need a letter from your employer, which I'm sure Mike, you know, provides you guys to say you need to work from home. You can claim a portion of your electricity. You can claim ADSL, phone costs. You know, if there is any fuel, telephone, and insurance related to your home office expense. If you own your property, there's a bit of interest you can claim on your mortgage, depending on the square meterage. And the same with if you're renting, you can claim a portion of that which is actually easier when you're renting for your office space and that. If you have printers, if you have to buy software, you know, I think that's probably covered by a company, but all those kind of things can be claimed against your salary for working from home. There is, however, going to be a huge focus on this in the next tax year, and Tita Mboweni reminded us in the budget that they will be looking carefully at home office claims, because lots of people have been working from home and they don't want people to abuse it. So keep your expenses, keep your slips, keep your stuff in order, and if you've got all the documentation and you've got all the proof, then there should be no problem claiming those things. Okay, but SARS does tend to just disallow if there's any reason that they can disallow those things. Yeah, so that is a bit on there. So questions. I'm just going to go to the chat quickly and see if there was anything coming in there. Is there such a thing as good debt? Yes, there is good debt. Look, I'm a person that doesn't like debt. My parents never really had debt and kind of brought me up like that as well. So, but I think when you are sometimes buying a car or a house, it is, those things are good to finance, especially, so now at the moment, the interest rate is quite low for purposes of buying a property. So it's not a bad time to like go into the property market, but then always try and pay more. So for example, I financed my last vehicle, and just because of where I was cash flow wise in my business, but now I paid it off in 2 years instead of the 5 years. But I've put extra money in there every month so that my interest, is like 40 Rand a month or something. But so I have the cash flow access bond if I need it. But, I'm paying it off quicker. So the more money you put into this kind of debt, the less interest you're paying. So, and then you've got access to it in case you need it. But I'd get your basic stuff sorted out and get yourself financially more competent before you start like playing with those kind of things. But that is kind of what you can do at that point. Okay, let's just stop there.
Mm-hmm.
Then what else is here?
I think there's also a question from Happiness as well, Claire.
Happiness's question?
Happiness, I think you have your hand. And
sick is a headache. Is it worth paying medical aid and pumping out all that money per month?
Yeah, the problem is you don't know what's going to happen in life. So I definitely maybe look at getting different quotes and stuff. Maybe you don't need something as, maybe the one that you've got is too many benefits, but I definitely get one that at least covers hospitalization.
Okay.
So your day-to-day, your doctors don't really cost that much, 250, 300 Rand for a visit to a doctor. If you get day-to-day sick, or, you don't have glasses, you don't have anything like that, so that's fine. But at least I'd get something just to cover the hospital. And you should be able to get something for less than 1,000 Rand that just covers hospital. Because you never know when you might have an accident, someone's going to knock into you. I'm sure everyone here knows someone that's just something's happened. My brother was, he rides a motorbike, and someone went through Stop Street. And he was in ICU for 3 weeks. So luckily he's still on my parents' medical aid at that point. It was a while ago, but you just don't know when those kind of things in life are going to happen. So, there are some really good government hospitals that you could land up at, but I don't know, that's also a risk you need to see if you want to take for yourself. If you want to rather be a government hospital patient or a private hospital patient, that's your personal risk you've got to take. But, I personally think spending at least covering the hospital, and the one is like medical insurance is a lot cheaper than medical aid, but they do cover hospitals. But I think if I'm right, you are getting a financial advisor here in as well, Mike, to chat to them.
Yeah, I think in time we will.
So I mean, that's kind of the thing that you can chat to also a financial advisor about, just to see the differences there. But as I say, it could cost you a lot of money, and then your health is also, look, you're young. So it's great when you're young, you don't really get sick, you don't, you don't, you look after yourself a lot better when your attention is not on a whole lot of different things. But yeah, good question to ask and good question to analyze. You can definitely probably cut that expense down. I personally wouldn't cut it out totally, because you never know.
Okay.
And Claire, there was a question from Ash just around the applications that you suggested. Are these safe to use? She was saying that a lot of these you have to give access to your accounts. So, from a hacking point of view, I suppose, how do you feel about that being safe?
So there are some that you give access to your accounts and they download your bank statements and stuff in, but certainly you don't have to do that. You can put your stuff in manually as well. So if you're not comfortable giving access to your accounts to some of them, and if it isn't a well-known one, I personally also wouldn't maybe give access to my bank accounts. But there's, like, I know Toshi Finance and Toggle are quite well-known ones, and you just input what you're sending.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So you don't necessarily have to give them access and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
There was a question that I'd asked Claire around when claiming for home expenses. Is it applicable to full-time staff or only contracting staff?
So because you require staff, well, they're not working from an office, they're working from home, and you have been requiring them to do that, full-time staff can be claiming that. All they'll need is a justification from the employer, a letter of justification doing that, which usually SARS is happy with that. It is going to get more attention this year, but it usually that kind of works.
Perfect, thank you for that. So
they have warned us about they'll be looking at that.
Okay, that's interesting to know. And then so the team would be doing it when they submit their personal annual tax returns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else?
There's a question from Robert. He was saying there are quite a few golden rules for budgeting, such as the 50, 30, and 20 rule. Ideally, how would you suggest, Claire, that the team allocates their income?
I think you've got to, I have heard of there are different. There's a guy from Think and Grow Rich. He says you got your 10 pockets as well. You have your 10 different things you split it into. There are lots of different things. You've got to, I think, find the one that works to you. But I think, yeah, I'd say look at your budget, see how you spending your stuff, see where you can start cutting down, and then go for that and see. You can always be cutting something down. You can always be putting some money, no matter what you're earning, into some sort of saving or debt reduction.
And Claire, just your maybe some feedback around time. Once you start saving from as soon as possible, how that can help if you're looking at
if you start saving, putting money in investment, that compound interest is quite getting your money to make money for you. So you put 100,000 Rand, say, in an investment, and it earns say 10%, and then you've got 110,000 Rand, and the next year it earns another 10%, and then you get another 11,000 Rand, and you've got 121,000 Rand, and it kind of carries on growing like that. And that's often what happens as well with unit trusts. They take the interest and the dividends and they capitalize it in the unit trusts, and it's part of how your money grows, not only on the share prices that are growing. The interest rate is quite low at the moment, but you still get funds and money markets and things like that that are making money. Therefore, it's better to be, once you're debt free, then go that route, or putting extra money into, say, if you have a bond, put money rather into your bond to reduce your debt costs there, because you're saving more there than you are earning on your interest.
Happiness, I
makes
see
sense.
you have.
Happiness, yes.
Yeah, so just a question on emergency fund. I've read recently an article that spoke of people using their credit cards as emergency cash. So instead of having emergency cash for you, people rely on the credit card that will be fully paid and have funds there and ready for you to use as emergency cash. What do you think about that?
So you can use it by putting funds into your credit card, because then you're earning interest on those funds.
Mm.
And then you've just got to be careful. So I'm not saying, you can't use the credit card ever or whatever. So it is a useful tool, but you've got to be careful with your spending on it.
Okay.
So you might, for example, is like things. Someone might go, I was talking about the account stuff earlier. You go get a new washing machine, okay, and it's an expensive item for, especially you guys younger. So you can't pay it off in 1 month. So maybe you put it on the credit card, but what I'm saying is don't use once it's paid off, don't use the whole time, the 6 months, whatever you have to pay it off. Make sure you do it as quickly as possible. Give yourself a 3-month limit, for example.
Okay.
Honestly, if you look at, you go to Game or you go to any of these places or Macro or wherever, and they say, cash price is like 4,000 Rand, but you can only pay like 260 Rand a month, or something like that. You end up paying like 8,000 to 10,000 Rand for that thing. So it's not worth that.
Sure.
So and then payment or something happens and your credit record gets messed up. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to be aware, and once you are you're a little bit more, so like you've developed more financial competence and stuff, then you can use your credit card effectively. But just as I say, set yourself the challenge and make sure. I would put money in there and keep it there, because the credit card also, credit interest on the credit card, you do earn credit interest on there as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, Claire, I think it's been a really, really insightful session. Thank you. I've learned a tip or two. Some key takeouts, looking at paying your credit card at the end of the month, also building that credit rating and a good credit score, essentially. So utilizing that credit card, but managing it effectively. Sacrificing small things that won't really add value in your life. The big thing is asking for discounts. It doesn't hurt to ask. I think, sometimes we just take it at face value, but that's excellent. Income protection, you never know what could happen in life. So if there's something around income protection, looking at that, and then avoid paying late tax and the penalties. So yeah, I think some very, very good tips. I don't know if there are any other questions for Claire.
All good on my side. Thank you.
From my side, thank you, Claire.
Also
good.
very good. Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Claire.
And just give a big round of applause for Claire. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
One of my passions is making people financially competent.
We can definitely see that.
It's great in this country, and so it's just, you do this, you show your friends, you help them manage better. Just takes a lot of pressure off when you don't, tied to the banks, and tied to all these accounts, and tied to all these things. You are a lot more free.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Awesome, Claire. Thank you so much for your time and presenting to us today. Really appreciate it. Team, we're going to just stay on for 10 minutes. So yeah, we'll let Claire go. So thank you very much, Claire. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you at the next EO session.
Yes, yes.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Claire.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cool. Right, awesome, guys. So, Michaela, if you can just stop recording, that'll be great, and then we can save that. So,
Sure.
what I want